Also not looking good is the latest warning from the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell. The Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, is now warning that the American economy is losing jobs, which we knew, even though Donald Trump canceled the official jobs reports, we still have others. And the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, also believes that the job losses may be worse than the data we even have. This coming on the heels of a decision to cut interest rates. Let's take a listen.
Why did we move today? I would say point to a couple things. First of all, gradual cooling in the labor market has continued. Unemployment is now up 0.3 from June through September. Payroll jobs averaging 40,000 per month since April. We think there's an overstatement in these numbers by about 60,000, so that would be negative 20,000 per month.
So understand what he just said. He says if you go all the way back to April, remember, only over the summer did we start knowing we were losing jobs. What Powell is saying is if you go all the way back to April, the average numbers are plus 40K a month, which is terrible, by the way. The numbers we believed were plus 40,000 jobs a month. He believes that's been overstated by 60,000 jobs per month, meaning we've actually been losing 20,000 jobs per month. So the jobs situation, a warning from Jerome Powell. Issue number two, inflation. Jerome Powell also saying that he expects prices to continue going up, and he points directly at the tariffs.
Total PCE prices rose 2.8% over the 12 months ending in September, and excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices also rose 2.8%. These readings are higher than earlier in the year as inflation for goods has picked up, reflecting the effects of tariffs.
So put together the picture that Jerome Powell is painting for us. You know, Trump wanted his rate cuts. The Fed typically cuts rates when it finds that there is trouble brewing in the economy or active trouble and says we will cut rates to try to buoy a sinking economy. Trump has been saying for a while, we need rates way lower. Well, now Jerome Powell is saying, look at what's happening with inflation due to tariffs. Look at what is happening to the jobs market. Now it's time for us to actually go and to cut the rates. One more from Jerome Powell, and here he says that over the near term, he expects inflation to go up.
In the near term, risks to inflation are tilted to the upside and risks to employment to the downside, a challenging situation. There is no risk-free path for policy as we navigate this tension between our employment and inflation goals. A reasonable base case is that the effects of tariffs on inflation will be relatively short-lived, effectively a one-time shift in the price level. Our obligation is to make sure that a one-time increase in the price level does not become an ongoing inflation problem. But with downside risks to employment having risen in recent months, the balance of risks has shifted. Our framework calls for us to take a balanced approach in promoting both sides of our dual mandate.
Now, there is another aspect to this where, there's sort of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where it's difficult to put a lot of time into self-actualization if lower on the hierarchy of needs, you don't have access to food, you don't have access to shelter. There's a hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Everybody learned it in, high school psychology class. Not every, okay, I shouldn't say that. Many people learned that in high school psychology class. There's something equivalent to this when it comes to observing and evaluating the political situation in the United States of America. And what I mean by that is the following. There is an important question in the economic space about if you're worried about inflation, you could take an economic approach of letting employment cool a little bit. In other words, what I mean is the following. If employment is not as full, it doesn't mean we have an unemployment crisis, but if employment is not as full, that can actually put downward pressure on prices because fewer people can afford things. Sucks for them, right? I'm not lying about that. I'm speaking unemotionally about something that is people's lives. But oftentimes in economics, you have to speak unemotionally about policy, and some people get hurt by it. But I'm trying to give you the theory. You could argue the inflation issue, to a degree, could take care of itself if employment does cool. But of course, then there's people who are going to lose jobs. But that is considered a valid piece of economic theory that could be considered. Does the Fed need to act to keep unemployment as low as 4 to 4.5%, which can push inflation because so many people have jobs and can afford to buy things? Or is there an approach where you say, let's let employment cool in order to ease up on the inflation? We can't even have that conversation because we're busy dealing with a president putting in place blanket tariffs that make no sense, attempting to bully the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, into dumping rates 3 or 4 points, et cetera, et cetera. We've got to bail out the farmers. Because we have so many self-inflicted crises as a result of Trump, there is really no space for a broader conversation about economic policy and what it should be in an economy the size and maturity level that the United States economy currently finds itself. Just throwing that in there so people know we're busy trying to put out fires, but there are broader discussions about the future of the economy that adults could and should be having, for which there is very little time or space right now. A lot of guys go years without ever thinking about their underwear. You just keep buying the same kind, dealing with the same discomfort, the sticking, the chafing, the readjusting. Once you try sheath underwear, you are going to realize you don't have to put up with that. Our sponsor, Sheath Underwear, is lightweight, breathable, comes with 2 separate pouches in the front that keeps everything comfortably in its own place. Airflow happens. You stay dry and cool all day. You put them on once and you will immediately get it. The fit, the quality, the design, it just feels better. I've been wearing sheath underwear for years. It's a level of comfort I didn't even know was possible. I would recommend them to anyone. And with the holidays here, Sheath also makes a great gift for yourself or for someone else. They've got tons of styles and colors for both men and women. Go to sheathunderwear.com/Pakman and get 20% off with code Pakman. The link is in the description.